From Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and the studios of 850 AM WFTL, this is Outlaw, America's alternative voice. Streaming around the world at outlawshow.com. This week on Outlaw, Broward Commissioner Sue Gunzberger and her son, activist Ron Gunzberger, leaders who have championed equal rights in South Florida and across the globe. Here's your host for Outlaw, an activist and former Fort Lauderdale City Commissioner himself, Dean Trantalis.
Good evening. My name is Dean Trantalis, and welcome to Outlaw, America's alternative voice. Tonight we have invited two very distinguished guests from our community, Commissioner Suzanne Gunzberger and her son Ron Gunzberger. Welcome. Good evening.
Thank you.
And Happy New Year to both of you.
Happy New Year also. You're pretty lucky to get people to come out on New Year's Day for you.
Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
We're looking for the black-eyed peas.
Wrong door. That was the second door on the right. This is our 10th show as we continue the journey into a historic approach to educate, challenge, and to provoke listeners into hearing and understanding issues that directly affect members of the gay community, as well as their families, their friends, and co-workers. This is the first time a South Florida radio program will feature matters that exclusively focus on the gay community. And each week we will be presenting guests who will speak to us about a topic most likely you've heard about in the news. We will explore history, we will entertain hopes, and we will invite you, the listener, to call in and participate. The gay community is often referred to as the gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgendered community, LGBT for short. Each day, its members are challenged by discrimination and the consequences of bigotry that are often left unchecked by rules which govern our society. Outlaw will serve as a new voice, an alternative voice to the messages most often heard in the mainstream media. It will also act as an outlet for those whose voices cannot otherwise be heard, and through this dialogue it will hopefully uncover new ways to put an end to injustice and inequality. So tonight we are very fortunate to have a longtime sitting member of the County Commission, Suzanne Gunzberger. Thank you again, Suzanne, for coming.
My pleasure.
And I first met Commissioner Gunzberger a number of years ago in the 1990s when the gay community was approaching its I would say it was reached its moxie and decided that we needed a gay rights law in Broward County. And at that time there were 7 members of the County Commission.
Right.
And my team and I met with you, and we tried to convince you and the other members to agree to add sexual orientation to the already existing Equal Rights Ordinance. And but before we get to that, Commissioner Gunzberger, tell us a little bit about your background. What brought you to the County Commission, and what was your experience before that?
Well, I spent 10 years on the Hollywood City Commission prior to going to the County Commission, but I've always been an activist when it comes to politics. I grew up with it. At my dinner table as a child, we often talked politics, so it was just a natural for me. And I was a volunteer in National Council of Jewish Women, who usually go to both city, county, state, and even the federal, Washington, D.C., to talk and try to convince people on behalf of those who don't have a voice.
So was that your first time in public office when you ran and served as a city commissioner in Hollywood?
Yes.
So when did you begin your tenure at the county level?
In 1992.
1992. So almost 20 years now.
Right.
So will next year be the end of your term?
No, I have 3 more years.
3 more years will be the end of your term. And
at the end of that term, she will be the longest-serving county commissioner, tied with Jerry Thompson for the longest-serving county commissioner in Broward history.
Wonderful. Now, is the law now such that there are term limits within the county commission?
They currently are, although there is a lawsuit up at the state Supreme Court trying to overturn the wish of the voters, which by over 70% voted for term limits for the county commission.
Who initiated that lawsuit?
Bill Scheer.
Bill Scheer. Is he a local attorney?
Yes.
In Fort Lauderdale?
Yes.
Now, did he initiate that on behalf of other people, or is he the plaintiff?
Well,
Ron, would you have something to say about that?
At least from the newspapers, I won't attribute aspersions to anyone, but it would appear the people involved in it seemed to be friendly with Commissioner Rodstrom, my county commissioner.
Okay. So, but at the end of your term, it's your intention to retire from the post.
Whether it's overturned or not, I will no longer be a county commissioner.
Well,
In spite of all those that are begging me to change my mind in case it's overturned.
now you recently concluded a one-year term as mayor of Broward County. Is that correct?
Correct.
And but you've held that post more than one time. Is
Third
that
time.
It was your third time.
Right. The other two we were called chairs, not tables, chairs.
Chairs. And tell us a little bit about what the mayor of Broward County does during that tenure.
The mayor does a lot more than I did in the past. The mayor sets the agenda, approves the items that go on to the agenda each week. The mayor conducts the county commission meetings and is the one who is in charge of the commission meetings. The mayor appoints people to the various committees that we serve on, and the mayor is the titular head of Broward County.
So you're our representative outside of Broward County and other
Right.
counties, other states, other countries. Have you ever been to other countries on behalf of the county?
This past year I went to Brazil, to Sao Paulo, on a trade mission with the governor.
And, oh yes, the much heralded trade mission with the governor. Has that reaped any benefit? And the mayor of Jacksonville.
And the mayor of
Jacksonville County, Duval County?
Yeah, so you actually had two good Democrats, their mom and Mayor Brown.
No, and then we had one more. We had
Not a
two
Democrat.
not a Democrat.
So two good Democrats.
Has anything yet materialized from that trade mission?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
We have some companies that are coming to Broward County. One is bringing 75 jobs to begin with, and we've opened up some more trade places for us to sell more goods to export to Brazil. Brazil is our largest trading partner,
Here in Broward County.
even in the state
In the
of
state of Florida. So when you left the City Commission of Hollywood, did you have any particular set of goals or an agenda that you were bringing to the county when you started representing your district in 1992?
Several, one of which was to improve the relationships between the cities and the counties, which I think
Had that deteriorated?
to some degree, yes. It does on a periodic basis, depending on the issue and where we stand and where some of the cities stand. Currently, the biggest one where we're separated on, and I'm hoping we can find a solution, is something called waste.
And by the way, and except for Oakland Park, all the other cities seem to be very happy and supportive of the county ethics code when it applied to the county commission. But only Oakland Park actually passed a resolution supporting having it applied to the cities, which now it does apply to the cities, even though the other 30 cities weren't so happy about it.
In fact, I believe Wilton Manors is entertaining a charter revision in which the members of their city commission will be considered part-time city employees, and they're hoping to remove themselves from being from that
They
law
can't.
applying to them.
It won't,
They can't.
unless they're not going to be elected officials, it'll still apply to them. Doesn't
Well,
matter what they do.
that again. I don't know the.
And
We
by the
are-
way, the gift ban for the county applies to county employees too.
Okay.
And
Well,
we are considered part-time employees.
Yeah. So by the way, just so you know,
That doesn't work.
they can't accept gifts if they work for the county either. So that won't get them out of the people buying them free meals and all that. They still have to pay for their own dinners and
but
champagne.
that
and whatnot.
begins when January 1st.
Second.
Second. So today's the 1st. So you can have the water I just gave to you without any retribution.
Oh, no, I'm going to have to pay for
You're
this.
gonna- okay.
For us, it went into effect over 6 months ago.
Ah. Okay.
The cities, when
It
I
was
wanted
53
to,
cents.
you will get the money from me.
I didn't realize it was that strict.
Oh, yes.
Is it? Okay.
Well, you are, wait a minute, are you a vendor?
No.
Are you a lobbyist?
No, I'm not a lobbyist.
Then I can accept it.
Oh, you can? Okay. So if you're a registered lobbyist, that puts you in a different position.
That is correct. And if
Okay.
you're somebody who does business,
Does business too,
with
yeah.
the
Does
county,
business with the county.
it also. So I don't
Okay.
have to, you can take back the 53.
Although
Okay.
it is an interesting message, by the way, that they're sending to the voters in Wilton Manors, that they are so addicted to free meals and gifts and trips that they want the voters to change the charter so that they can get things the rest of the people in Wilton Manors don't get.
Well, I'm
in their
not
daily
sure
life.
if that's the motivation. I think part of it was the fact that you had to reveal your income. And I think there are members of that commission that felt that that was just totally out of bounds.
And maybe
therefore-
someone shouldn't be a lobbyist and be on the city commission.
Well, again, that's their deal, not mine. What In 1992, actually in 1990, being a member of the City Commission of Hollywood, you were certainly aware of the county-wide referendum that took place, in which an effort was made to amend the Equal Rights Ordinance of the county through a public vote. And at that time, I believe the turnout, the vote in favor of that was as much as 41 or 42%, but it was still defeated. You then became a county commissioner, and the law was changed at the state level, and then it was allowed that the county could amend its own charter, not its own charter, excuse me, its own ordinance regarding sexual orientation. And
that was our human rights ordinance.
Yes, the human rights ordinance. And the human rights ordinance, as I understand it, prevents discrimination based on various classes, such as religion or national origin,
or race
or familial status, as it now is explained, as well as sexual orientation today, in public places, housing, and jobs. In 1995, the community came before you, and do you recall those moments?
Oh, yes. They were really scary. In fact, because we did not start the first hearing properly at 5:01, if you remember, we had to do it 3 times rather than twice, which we usually do for any ordinance. And we had people threaten us. We had to have the police be at the meetings because of the threats. I had had some of the ugliest language that I heard from clergy people, of all people, that you would expect that people who are Christian clergy persons, that they would understand what the golden rule is, and that they should not feel that anyone is less than anyone else. I was horrified by some of the speech that came out.
If I recall correctly, the chamber was packed to the gills. In fact, they even had to usher the overflow into other rooms.
That is correct.
Right.
The feeling was so heated. It was a very miserable hearing. I was chair at that time.
You were chair at that time. And you had 6 colleagues who, not all together in favor or against, there were some people on the fence, and the public hearing went on for several hours, as I recall.
Yes.
And then there was debate, and then we had a result, and as I recall, it was 6-1.
Yes.
So we were able to convince at least 6 of the members of the commission at the time, and then there was one person who chose not, and that was Commissioner Rodstrom. Right. And
actually, if I recall, he even wore, which was in the papers, a bulletproof vest then, because he was worried
did wear
something would
bulletproof.
happen at the
Right.
hearing then, which was odd.
But he wasn't worried about the gay community shooting him. He was worried about the anti-gay community shooting him, as I recall.
Well, but then if he wore the vest and he voted no, he didn't need the vest.
Well, he was paranoid. Perhaps he was expecting a preemptive shot at him.
But at least he's come around, and when we've had subsequent votes that deal with this community, he's been on the right side.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. Several years had passed, and then in 1999, the community came before the commission once again, and there was an effort to establish a domestic partnership ordinance within Broward County. And at that time, the domestic partnership ordinance not only established the registry, but we even included healthcare surrogate rights in the same ordinance. And I believe at that time it was now 9 members of the commission.
Did he still vote against?
And he voted against it then too.
I thought by then he had learned.
Well, no.
Button stuff from the last time.
There was probably.
What happened on Jeopardy?
Yes, well, whoever was pushing his buttons certainly convinced him not to vote for it. And so once again, and again, this is not a let's beat up on John Rodstrom show, but there is a history with the county commission, as I see it, of being a very supportive body, a political body in favor of the gay community, and but from your
But
perspective,
they just voted recently, by the way, I want to point out, to actually extend it that any contractor seeking to do business with the county.
we'll get to that in just a
I'll
minute.
say, because you had a unanimous commission, including Broward's first Muslim commissioner, even voting in support of that.
Well, we'll talk about that in just a moment. Now, going back a little bit to the to the late '90s, what do you suppose the feeling was on the commission in 1995, when right after 5 years after the community had voted to not allow sexual orientation to be added to the Human Rights Ordinance? What compelled the commissioners to feel that they had the ability, the mandate, the authority to go ahead and add it?
Perhaps they were growing up to what was reality.
They meaning the commissioners?
Yes. That this is really, I can't understand anyone being biased against any person for whom they are, be it sexually, racially. I mean, just as most gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexuals don't choose their orientation is chosen by them, by their genetics. And we have a history where somebody is different, people suspect. Some people use religion as a reason, which I think is unreasonable, because we're supposed to turn the other cheek. We're supposed to treat everyone as we would want to be treated.
So
And finally, to come of age, because there's so many stories. For example, you talked about health rights, where partners were not able, even when we passed this, if the hospital chose not to respect the partnership, they could let the surrogate cool their heels and not help the partner.
So in a sense, the commission decided to take a leadership role.
Right.
Instead of wetting their finger and putting it up into the wind to see where the political winds were going, they decided, it would appear from what you're saying.
I'll give you this. The winds had shifted slowly. It was over time. It's still shifting today. It gets better every day. But it was a much more courageous decision then, because while the views were changing societally, there still were a lot of minds at that point still unchanged who have evolved now, most of them. Most.
Wait, they're still there. DOMA was passed by Congress.
Signed by President Clinton, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's at the national level. As far as the local level is concerned,
It's an example. He said he was wrong now. So, I mean, as I said,
Right.
it's an evolution.
And
Bob Barr, who was the sponsor of it, who was the Republican sponsor of DOMA, has said he was wrong.
and so the evolution, and again, bringing up perhaps now the point that you just raised, Ron, another measure came before the county commission in which transgender was added to
The
the
list.
list of protected classes in the Human Rights Ordinance,
I have a feeling it's a trick question. You already know the vote total.
and the vote was unanimous.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. So someone told me.
That was me quizzed on it again.
So so now those who are listening tonight were probably wondering, the other voice that keeps popping into the conversation, Ron Gunzberger, and how is it that he's part of this dialogue?
Plucky comic relief.
And and Ron and I met each other many years ago in the early '90s.
We actually were vice chairs of the committee on that 1990 vote.
We were vice chairs of that 1990 vote, and we were also involved in a statewide effort in which there was a move afoot to try to deny counties and cities from enacting equal rights ordinances to include sexual orientation, and that was Broward Unite Against Discrimination, and that was in 1992 and 1993. And that's kind of where we cut our teeth together in the equal rights movement here in Broward County. And Ron and I have known each other since that time, and each of us taking on different roles. Sometimes one of us would be out in front, and the other one would be in the back, encouraging the other, and vice versa.
I usually get to be the bad guy. You're the good guy.
Oh, thanks, if that's what you call it. And And so, so tonight, the point of inviting both Commissioner Gunzberger and Ron Gunzberger here is to let the people know in our community of the mother-son team that has worked together in tandem and separately in the advancement of equal rights here in Broward County. And the reason why Ron's role is so important is because, not just because of his connection with his mother on the county commission, but because of his initiative and energy that he has devoted over the years to ensuring that equal rights not only are established but maintained.
That you wanted me to drive Mom here today.
Exactly. You were her only ride. Let's talk a little bit about this transgendered issue, because transgendered...
See, you segue from that into transgender.
Right, exactly.
I was not a woman. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Right. The new political issue of being transgendered and the protection of transgendered rights came before the United States Congress when the Employment Non-Discrimination Act came before Congress, and national organizations wanted to include transgendered as a protected component within that law, which didn't exist years prior, and many attributed that extension to cause the defeat of ENDA, as it was later called. And yet in Broward County, we have now an addition of transgendered as a special class to protect persons based on their sexual identity. And so tell us a little bit about what is Broward County, and why is Broward County keep pushing the envelope in protecting its citizens? Tell us, Commissioner Gunzberger, where are you going with this?
We believe that everyone should be equal. It's just inbred because of where we come from. I was one of the people marching in Tallahassee for the ERA, something that I'm passionate about to this day. And when we talk about equal rights, women still don't have them. You know, we've gone further with the community, the LGBT community, than we have with women's rights within the state and even within our country. And I think it's inbred, and we have a majority of women on our commission, maybe because of that. And people have...
You think women are more sensitive to equal rights than men?
No, that we have been fighting for our own equal rights and not been successful.
The constitutional amendment for equal rights for women.
I understand.
And that we want to make sure that at least we do our part where we can. By the way, Broward County was the only county that passed the ERA, in case you didn't know that.
In the only county in the state of Florida?
Yes, right.
There was a state ERA on the ballot back in the 70s.
Ah, I didn't know that.
Now you do.
Okay. So if we take a moment and think about where Broward County stands today in concerning its own citizens, how would you compare Broward County and other counties with regard to the acceptance and inclusion of people, and how its laws reflect the attitude that the government has towards its people?
I think we're the front runner. We see other counties finally coming into the 21st century. I think we were there in the 20th century. And they follow when they see nothing horrible happens. Look, the states that have put in and allowed gays and lesbians to get married, it didn't crumble marriage. Marriage has survived when you can marry the person you love, no matter what their sexual orientation had.
Well, it's the old it's the old Barney Frank joke about V8, which is the Defense of Marriage Act or anything else in the federal level. When she's talking about the different views, it's not like if you change the law, even in Florida, and saying now you can marry same-sex marriage, that all of a sudden you're going to wake up like a V8 and said, I could have had a guy. It just doesn't work that way. I mean, I guess the option's there for you if you want it, but it doesn't quite work that way. But what's nice is for Broward County is for equality, for equal rights, is going forward for people like you and me who were, and others out there who are fighters for gay and lesbian equality in Broward County, is going forward our days are kind of boring because kind of everything on the checklist is kind of checked off.
Except marriage.
Well, no, that's not a local issue. I'm saying, but for what you can do at this level, everything here is checked off for what we can do
From a legal point.
From a legal at a Broward County level, that we're fortunate enough to live in Broward, which probably is the county that is most respectful and grants most equality for gays, lesbians, bisexuals in Florida.
It's interesting because when we interviewed Howard Finkelstein on our last show, he indicated he has a 23-year-old lesbian daughter, and she is growing up in the context that we have created here in Broward County over the last generation, and she Howard says that she can't even fathom why anyone would be anti-gay, because her whole world has been so accepting, and it's not even an issue amongst her peers. Is this the success that you think that you and your efforts have achieved?
Well, it's not a me and mine, it's our. You were part of that as much or more so than me. But I think it's, by the way, it's societal change as a whole. It helps in Broward that legally we have rights. I think generationally, if you look at polls around the country, I don't care where you go. You can pick a state, any state. I'm not picking on Arkansas or North Dakota or wherever, Oklahoma. Below a certain age group, below 40, young people in general, Republicans, Democrats, even evangelicals, support gay marriage, or at least even a place like Oklahoma. I think actually Nebraska, sorry, that's a poll I saw recently. A majority of all people under 40 in Nebraska support either gay marriage or civil unions.
Well, why is it that over 31 states have either constitutional amendments or state laws that forbid gay marriage?
Well, people often...
It's going to take a generation to undo that?
Take a generation to undo that. People vote their fears, and, you know...
and the young people don't vote.
Yeah, you have problems...
She says sternly.
They don't vote enough.
We need them.
But an example to give you how things have changed was, I can think back right before Christmas, 2 weeks ago or so, in Iowa, and you had a 14-year-old girl go up to Rick Perry there and talk about how she's bisexual and she didn't like his TV commercial about he wants to bring back Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Now, a day when a 14-year-old with TV cameras trailing the presidential candidate will get up and talk openly in a place like Iowa somewhere that they want equal rights with a presidential candidate shows how societally things have changed. I think it has.
Well, it certainly shows how the dialogue has changed and what's on people's minds, and certainly, you know, the openness of gay adoptions has...
we're not scary anymore.
We're not...
Now we're the funny comic characters in movies and TV
right?
shows.
Yeah, well, you are characters in TV shows. You're not stereotypes. You're
Right.
regular, normal people.
Well, I always felt that, but apparently it's taken an educational process to let other people know that, and perhaps by the media now taking it upon itself to characterize members of the gay community in less stereotypical, carnival-like settings and characters. I think that they finally woke up to the mainstream nature of the gay community. Now we have to take a break right now, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about where the effort goes from here and other efforts that you both have been involved with. Stay tuned.